Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. They are digitally recording us in high definition for broadcast on their fine website, as well as your local public access station, depending on which system you're on, and the reason why. It's our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Carl, and good morning to our listeners.
Yep. So they're talking about the rain getting here in the afternoon, early afternoon hours. I was looking at the radar as thunderstorms are already starting to fire up in eastern Minnesota, making their way into Wisconsin. So it looks like we're going to get wet.
Yes, we are.
At least we don't have to shovel that stuff.
Right. Let's hope not. We're done with that. Hopefully last week was the last round of winter insults, I guess, coming our way. So happy to have that. It was a mess, and I know it was a mess for a lot of our residents to deal with, especially when they were clearing sidewalks. The way that the snow cleared the streets, it seemed to come off the plows and well back onto people's properties and sidewalks. I know that was the case for a lot of residents that called me. It was the case for me. It was difficult to shovel the end of the driveway after plows came through last week, but fortunately, I think we're through it for this part of the season.
Now, because of that, we should mention it was posted on the city website that the yard waste pickup has been rescheduled for the week of April 29th through May 3rd. And to prepare for that, residents should have yard waste and leaves bagged at the curb in front of their residence by Sunday, April 28th. And to help the city crews do their job as efficiently as possible, do not have the bags tied.
Right. Yeah, so similar procedures as have been in the past. We ask them to be out there on Sunday night or early Monday morning because crews will come and drive the routes of the city. And so as they get through the routes, they're not going to wait till the next day like they used to do in the past. They're just going to continue to make their way through the city as labor is a premium, right? We want to use that labor as efficiently as possible. And a lot of times as we know, there's a lot of winter cleanup yet, both in our public spaces, in our parks, as well as in our streets. That there's a lot of work to be done, and these guys need as much time to do those other, what we consider a bit higher priority tasks. But certainly next week, yard waste pickup and brush pickup will follow. So folks want to get out and enjoy the beautiful weather this weekend. It'd be a great time to get their yards cleaned up and get their things to the curb.
Okay. Well, last night, the Common Council reorganized for following the spring election. You had the swearing in of the city clerk, Jennifer Gossick, for her full term, and also alderpersons in districts 1, 3, 5, and 7 took their oaths, and he also had an oath of office and badge pinning for the new police officer, Brett Gerlach.
That's right. So it's kind of a lot of ceremony last night and getting everybody sworn in. So we haven't had any turnover on the city council with the last election. And as you mentioned, the city clerk was elected to the remainder of that term. The committee chairs, I'll just mention for folks that are interested in knowing who the committee chairs are. On Public Works, it's Alderperson Kubishak. In Human Resources, we've got Alderperson Blazer, they'll be chairing that, and then Finance will be Alderperson Koth. So there's been a little bit of movement, not a dramatic change in replacement of members of the council on the committees, but and then the legislative committee are the three chairs of those committees, and I believe Steve Koth is chairing the legislative committee.
And who will be the Common Council president?
Oh, and Common Council president is Alderperson Kubishak.
Okay, yep. Okay. So he will be the and that's significant, folks, that there's a meeting of the whole,
right.
Committee meeting of the whole, then the council president will chair that meeting.
That's right. That's right. And if there's in the event that I'm unable to attend a council meeting and preside over that meeting, then the council president would preside over the meeting. Okay. I believe it's only happened once in my just over 7 years in office, so it doesn't happen very often. Okay, so
we're reorganized and ready to get to work now for the new term. And talking about getting to work, I guess we can all say, if you're wondering why there might be extra traffic on the Riverview Expressway as well as Jackson Street Bridge during the rush hours, it's because the Grand Avenue project has begun.
That's right. Yeah. So the eastern portion of the downtown segment, both from from the bridge effectively to 8th Street, only a portion of it's closed right now, which is really 2nd Street to Lincoln, as folks that have been through there, or Lincoln or Jackson, whatever they want to refer to it as. That project has begun. It was a week late because of last week's winter storm. It was supposed to start last Monday, but it started this last Monday. The project, just for folks that are interested in it, it's a $2.5 million project. The state is participating in the program under what's called the STP, State Transportation Urban Program. So cities that are in kind of micropolitan areas, so the Wisconsin Rapids area and the surrounding communities come together and sort of undemocratically, I mean, there's some democratic component to it, select projects that we're going to request that the state participate in. And so these are done years in advance. I think this project was designated back when I started in 2012. So from that point, there's design work and everything else that gets underway. Another interesting thing to this program was it's generally been underfunded. So this project was actually going to begin earlier than 2019, but because of state transportation funding, that project was moved to this year, which is not always a bad thing because it affords us the opportunity to help maybe save up or plan for our cost share. So because the state is participating in this $2.5 million project, the state will pay 80% of the street surfacing and streetscape and all the other incidental costs, the street lighting and all of that. And then the city is going to come in and do the underground sanitary and sewer portions of the project. So just on it's really two projects. The 2nd Street to 8th Street portion downtown is the $2.5 million project, which we pick up 20% of. And then the city portion will be the bridge to 2nd Street. They wouldn't amend the project limit, so we ended up having to pick that one up ourselves. So that project, we don't have a scheduled start date depending on weather and a couple of other factors of when we're going to close 2nd Street. But our intention is to keep as many of those intersections open as possible to allow cross traffic. The post office is probably the most unique business along the corridor in the sense that they don't have a very public entrance on the rear or the side of the building. So the contractor are expected to keep a walk available to get to the front of some of those businesses along the corridor as they're reconstructing or as they're working in the utility or the center part of the street.
I have a chain of command, I guess, might be a question when you have this kind of a project. And who's the lead dog? Is it the state? Is it the city, or do you guys work together? How do you work?
It's a bit of coordination. It depends on the aspect, but generally, like we had some concerns yesterday regarding access to the post office. So our contact was actually the project engineer, who is Blake, who works for local engineering firm Quest, and they were selected by the state as the low qualified bidder. So they're overseeing the project, and then there's a number of other prime or other contractors that are working on the project from around the state. So we're the local contractor, so to speak, on the utility, the water, sewer, and obviously the electric portions of the project. But yes, we've got a local contact. Our city engineer is the person that generally is fielding all the complaints and concerns. So if residents have comments or concerns, give the city engineer a call. Of course, they can call me too. But the city engineer would be the quickest way to get the project manager that complaint or that information. So, and then how is the city paying for the balance of that 20% project? It'd be through borrowing. So the city annually borrows for roads. We've done this for years and years and years, decades, and there isn't any plan to change that in sight unless the state provides additional levy limit for levying additional taxes on an annual basis. So people see that in the form of on their tax bill, but it's in the form of a debt service tax rate. So they don't actually see the breakout of what the borrowing portion of that is. But it's between $500,000 and $900,000 when we factor all of the costs that are associated with that project. But for a $2.5 million project, the state's participating 80%. The design, it's going to look quite different when it's done. It's going to look a lot more like a downtown corridor. It's going to be narrower street. with only 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction. Right now we've got 2 in one direction and 1 in the other. We'll have bike lanes, on-street parking. One of the biggest benefits is the amount of on-street parking that will be added to the project. We all want parking at close to the front door of every business that we visit, but so like up by the library and the Hotel Mead, there will be quite a bit of additional on-street parking. And I know the library in particular, when they hold meetings or and concerts or other events, that parking lot and the streets fill up very fast. So this will be a welcome addition, I think, in many regards to the vitality of the businesses and the entities along East Grand Avenue when it's complete.
And now this work will continue through the fall till like October?
October 31st is the scheduled completion date in the state's contract. We'll see how that rolls here.
Well, that's all
really dry summer and yeah.
Weather dependent and everything else. And also part of the from the city's perspective is you got some really old infrastructure underneath.
Yes.
And that you're going to be fixing.
Right. The street surface is 66 years old, as well as the underground infrastructure.
Yeah. So, and when you have that kind of old infrastructure, sometimes you find things that you weren't anticipating finding.
Right. That's right.
You know, a bit of history that you go and.
Yeah, what they filled the street with, perhaps when they built it. You know, those are always unknowns. I mean, they've got good records of what type of fill and material were used, but yeah, there's always a question of uncovering. We found brick pavers in the past when we did First Street North. We found asbestos in other cases up by the courthouse in the past when we did the roundabout project. That was that was the last like project where the state had a participating amount and then the city picked up the remainder. So yeah, it's going to be a nice project when it's done. It'll have nice streetscape. It'll have the new decorative poles as people see on West Grand Avenue, street trees. So it'll have a nice look and feel to it.
Now, you also were talking last time you were here about getting the public's input on some other amenities.
Right.
Maybe it's privately funded or some stuff that would work, I guess, kind of artsy.
Sure.
Type of stuff. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, we wanted to, as we think about our downtown in the future, it's about creating points of interest and places where people want to spend some time, right? Either walking or biking or, in this case, supporting businesses. But yeah, there's a question of, so some of the streetscape elements include benches and trash and recycling receptacles, bike parking. And the benches in particular, we were considering, or perhaps even the trash receptacles, doing a call for entries where artists or community groups could come together and design a bench. There are a lot of communities will have a number of communities that I've been to have like these mosaic, basically ceramic tiles that they would decorate a bench with in some sort of pattern or artistic fashion. So that's the interesting thing that I think we could put forward that makes that corridor a little bit unique compared to other places.
And if you needed extra money, you could maybe have people buy a brick or
right,
like hey, and they could do it in memory of a family member.
That's right. We get a lot of requests for people to memorialize or in honor of or recognition of a group or an individual in trees and in benches along the river. So this would be another unique opportunity to do it in our downtown.
There you go. And so I guess the bottom line is the work has started, and now we all just have to be patient.
Yes.
As like any. We got to keep our eye on the goal.
That's right.
But getting there, we're going to go through some hassle. Yep. I mean, that's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. Now, how often do you will there be meetings between the city and the state and on this project? Weekly, monthly, or what?
Yeah, definitely weekly. We had a meeting, a kickoff meeting right before the project got started, and then we'll have regular project meetings. And then we also have a page dedicated on the homepage of the city's website that it says East Grand Avenue. It's got a little construction cone basically on the icon. People can click on that link, go right to there and get project updates that'll happen on a weekly basis that we'll put out there for the public.
Okay. Yeah, so there you can keep up on a regular basis.
That's right.
And especially if you're a business person or you live in that area. Now, do you anticipate having to do any blasting
I don't believe so. No, we're going to be doing. Just the contractor came through already and pounded up the concrete, and that's what they've been removing already. If people haven't been down there between 3rd and 2nd Street, seeing the pavement is already pretty well gone in those areas. So we don't anticipate any major blasting. It depends on what we find. The soil borings definitely tell us what type of material is under the surface there. So that's something that we should have a pretty good handle on and not run into too many unknowns or surprises.
Okay. And there'll be the detours marked and where traffic should go.
That's right.
And eventually what happens, so this is like on this end of West Grand Avenue, we all found our way.
Yeah, your regular routes, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That this is going to work for me.
That's right.
And we worked out fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they reopened, it was, this is nice.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm sure the people that work and live in that area will do the same.
Yep.
We're very adaptable as human beings.
Yes. Yeah. And you think Lincoln Street, we've turned that intersection to a 4-way flash so the people can move fairly efficiently through those intersections. That'll be a 4-way stop when the project is done. There's no roundabout. I know that was a question that we've continued to get.
Yeah.
Originally, there was a question of whether or not there could be a roundabout there, but really with the geometry and the curve coming up to Lincoln Street on East Grand heading east, it just didn't lend itself well to having a roundabout there. So it'll be just as efficient, we believe, to have a 4-way stop than it would to have a roundabout.
And of course, because of this construction, it's going to affect things like Lunch by the River, and the 4th of July celebration, et cetera.
That's right.
And I imagine, and there's still things being determined about that, but with the chamber and
exactly,
everything.
Yeah. So encourage our listeners to pay attention to when you have the chamber folks on.
Right.
There's tentatively, I believe, the farmers or the Lunch by the River is going to be co-located with the farmers market on Thursdays.
That would make sense.
Over on the southwest side of East Grand Avenue or West Grand Avenue, I guess, however you want to consider it. There definitely will be disruption. I think the parade route they're still working on some final touches with that come Blossom Fest. But the good news is 1 year of pain and construction will be a lasting, I think, project for all of us to be proud of when it's done.
And in the meantime, you're wrapping up or finishing up the downtown area of the trail.
Yes.
Of the river. So how are the plans for that? And how is that going to coordinate between?
Well, we've been waiting for the river to subside and just be kind of at its normal water level for the landscapers, the contractors to come in and finish up the first phase of East Riverbank work. There's in the Conservancy area, so south of the movie theater and the former Elks building across from the UCC church, there's a lot of finishing and landscaping work to be done. There's also some to be done in Demetz Park. We're also waiting for the furnishings to arrive. A number of those furnishings, because of steel pricing and other things, have been delayed. And so we're in the queue for the rest of the furnishings that'll be installed. So the benches, the trash receptacles, the like. So those will be probably in the summer. The grills will be another component that we're waiting on. And then as far as phase 2 goes, we're actually, we received bids on the project, and we have not awarded a bid to begin the phase 2 work. But I anticipate that that'll happen in the next couple of weeks. So until that happens, we don't have a start date for the work in Mead Rapids View or Veterans Parks.
And then, since we're talking about parks and trees, hey, there's a community tree sale coming up.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about that.
I'm not sure what year this is that we've held the community tree sale, but the Beautification Council and the city's Park and Rec Department really for a couple of reasons. One of which is just a beautification effort that the city used to have a lot of the Hopa variety trees.
Oh, yes, I remember those.
That were really attractive. And so the community tree sale has prioritized the flowering crab trees, so they've got a dramatic look to them, as well as a birch and a maple offering. And the other piece to this is we've lost a lot of trees and we'll continue to lose trees due to the emerald ash borer. And many of these trees are in the public right-of-way. We saw the removals of those trees along the Riverview Expressway a couple of summers ago that looked like we were taking down a lot of nice trees, but they were, in windstorms, they would have blown over and been hazards for the traveling public. So we're seeking donations to purchase trees for the city, as well as folks can buy some for their own use in planting on their own property. So there's a birch, a maple, and 2 crab apples available for purchase. The flyer is also available on Facebook and the city's website. And if folks want to call in and order they can call my office at 421-8216 to designate their desire if they want to purchase a tree for themselves or for the city. The trees range from $65 to $125.
Okay, and all orders are due by May 10th.
That's right.
Okay, so if you're thinking about, and then you can donate, like you said, you can donate to the city as well, and you can go to the Rapids website or just call your office 421-8216.
That's right.
For any information. The other thing, before we go to break, I wanted to talk about, you have another coffee coming up, and it's actually a coffee with the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. You're both joining forces on this one, Wednesday, April 24th, 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. at the Chamber office. And you're going to be the guest with the chamber.
That's right. They've started doing these too. I've been doing them for years, and I found them as a very effective. Seasonally, it depends on what, if the weather's really nice, people are generally less likely to show up. But, I had one at the Lowell Center last week, and I had over a dozen people that came to talk about a variety of issues or listen. Some people don't have an issue. They're just coming to listen and hear what other issues folks are bringing up for discussion purposes. So I found them a very effective way to connect with people on a one-to-one basis. A lot of times people don't want to make an appointment or stop by the office at City Hall or even pick up the phone. They want that human interaction, and I appreciate that because I think that's the best way for people to become informed and hear what's going on in the city. So yes, they'll be participating in one at the Chamber next Wednesday, as you said, from 7:30 to 9. And we don't have an agenda. It's pretty much a free-flowing, open conversation there's a lot of things that affect resident life in the city, and so I've heard everything so far at these coffee sessions.
And something too, it civilizes the conversation.
Yeah.
People, okay, we're having a cup of coffee. I can bring up an issue, maybe a serious issue or concern I have, but I don't feel intimidated by you, and you don't feel intimidated by me, and we can actually have a dialogue.
That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's an important thing. So mark it down on your calendar, gang. It's April 24th, Wednesday morning, 7:30 till 9 at the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce office, 1120 Lincoln Street here in Wisconsin Rapids. With that, we'll take our first break. You're listening to The Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media.
Good morning, and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome back, everybody, to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, recording this in high definition for viewing on their website and Facebook, as well as your local public access channel, because it's our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink. And the phone lines are open if you'd like to talk to your mayor at 715-424-2600. Well, since we last talked, the budget debate in Madison has heated up. We're learning more about the budget. Your initial thoughts about the budget that Governor Evers has proposed as it relates to cities?
Yeah, I believe Governor Evers had put forth a very productive budget and city-friendly budget. I know shortly after he was elected, our advocacy group, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, had engagement with his administration to indicate some of the, and certainly during the campaigns as well with both candidates. But this was probably the most city-friendly budget that we've seen in the last probably 8 to 10 years. So we're very excited and optimistic by the recommendations and proposals by the governor. Now, of course, there's a lot in the budget, but as it relates to city issues of concern, transportation being one of them, the governor proposed 10% of an increase in transportation aids and local road improvement aid, which is it's a welcome increase, but it's not nearly enough to make up on lost time where we've had to cut back or maybe defer maintenance. On an annual basis, our budget, our maintenance dollars and maintenance activities haven't declined. In fact, we've continued to do either what we've done in previous years or slightly more where possible. So while our maintenance activities, filling potholes and doing other joint replacements and things, chip sealing our streets, those activities have largely been unchanged. But when it comes to replacement of streets and our ability to finance some of those activities, that's been challenged. So Governor Evers' budget proposal had included a number of financing increases. The other one was shared revenue. So as it relates to just funding our general operations, whether it's public safety or park maintenance or the library or anything else that the city funds, there was for the first time an increase in shared revenue, which is the amount of money that the state returns back to the cities for its work. And so we're very optimistic that the state legislature will hear and will continue to hear from municipalities and cities like ours that these increases are necessary for us to continue to meet our service levels. Otherwise, we're going to have to continue to look for ways to reallocate labor. And certainly we're always looking for ways to be more efficient, but there's always a question. Do you keep the certain amount of hours open at the compost sites or, library services? All those things are always on the table when we're preparing our annual budget if our revenues are not at what they were, or even keeping up with the cost of living adjustments or just cost of doing business on an annual basis.
So that leaves, it's in the legislature's court then,
Yep.
And what they're going to do with the budget proposal. And have you had a chance to talk to either to our representatives about this and express your concerns? And hopefully that you would think that we can work out a compromise that satisfies their needs for, physical prudence and also addresses the concerns municipalities have been expressing.
Yeah, I think, they've seen, at least the representatives that we've talked with or that have been in office for a number of years have heard the stories about how we're having to debate cutting services or doing less maintenance or road maintenance activities. So I think, they know our story and our situation, and they've heard from others, towns and cities alike, that, we are optimistic that they'll come forth with some bipartisan support. Now, I don't know where they're going to land on transportation funding. It seems like the leaders in the Assembly and the Senate really are who decides what the caucus does. And I can't say that that's the same on every issue, but by and large, the leadership decides what the caucus really and the issues that they take up. So, no new revenue for transportation, for example. I think the governor's gas tax increase with indexing brings us back to where we would have been if we would have continued to index the gas tax on an annual basis. So those are just, I asked my residents, what are people willing to pay more at the pump? A nickel, a dime more at the pump to make sure we've got a well-funded transportation system in Wisconsin? I don't know what that number is, but I think it's safe to say that we're going to have to look at any number of sources of revenue, whether it's registration fees. I'm not keen on tolling, but maybe in a very limited circumstance where tolling might make sense. I think all of those things need to be on the table. The other one that has sort of come out that I've talked with our representatives about, and it's really too early to say if it's a good idea or not, is thinking about knowing that Wisconsin is heavily reliant on the local property tax.
Right.
That's uncommon when you compare ourselves to Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, Ohio, Indiana, where they have a variety of other sources. A local option sales tax is one such idea where you could enact a very small local sales tax that would be maybe designating roads and transportation issues, maybe public safety, maybe libraries. All those things could be funded from a local option sales tax. And while sales tax is generally regressive, this would allow us to capture the spend of those that are visiting our area and don't necessarily live in the city limits, but yet use all of our infrastructure. So we think about those that are non-city residents that would be buying goods and services in our city limits. So that's an idea. The county could also enact an additional increase in its sales tax to fund things, but that's one thing we're talking about as well.
Well, the phone lines are open at 715-424-2600, and we have our first caller of the morning for you, Your Honor. Good morning. You're on the Morning Magazine with Mayor Vruwink.
Yes, I was wondering if the mayor could speak to the meeting that was held at the Airport Commission last Thursday about the vote was about annexing the new planned hangar and also the current terminal into Wisconsin Rapids, and I'd like to stay on the line for a follow-up question.
Sure. Okay. Go right ahead. Let's get them.
So the caller's referring to the hangar that's going to be constructed out at Alexander Field, in large part because of state funding that was earmarked for the airport in the most recent state budget.
Right.
And so we've got about $2 million that remain in that fund to construct this hangar. It primarily serve transient aircraft coming to and from the city. I don't believe that it'll be a permanent storage facility for any one particular user, but the commission will have to decide that ultimately. And because of the hangar, it's desired to have, the commission decided through scoping that it would have some restroom facilities, but primarily fire suppression. Because of the size of the hangar, a state building code requires it to be serviced with fire suppression. And fire suppression is most efficiently served by having a city or a municipally provided hookup, that you couldn't have just a private well and pump water at a certain rate to be able to provide adequate fire suppression, both to meet fire code as well as state building code. So as part of that, none of the property really, with exception of one hangar, is located within the corporate limits of the city. And city ordinances since existence, I believe, have required that if you're going to hook up to city sewer and water, the property has to be in the corporate limits of the city. So the Village of Port Edwards does not have utilities in that proximity of the airport, because primarily they're on the west side of the river. So the commission had to face a decision of whether or not it was going to pursue annexation, and at this point, the commission has voted to pursue annexation for the new hangar, primarily for the purposes of fire suppression, and then, of course, if there's any ancillary or auxiliary restrooms in the facility. And then as far as the terminal building, it was discovered through an audit by our wastewater plant that while the utility was providing wastewater services to that, as well as garbage and water services, that our ordinances also require that anybody, as I just mentioned, anybody that's located or anybody that's hooked up to sewer and water services, municipal sewer and water, that they have to be located in the corporate limits. And the same goes for garbage pickup. So the Public Works Director had issued the commission a notification that they needed to discuss and desire and to determine if they want to still have garbage pickup provided to the airport terminal. So the commission at its last meeting voted to the affirmative to pursue annexation of those two parcels to be located within the city corporate limits.
Okay. Your follow-up question.
So those two facilities, they were on Grand Rapids or property?
They were in the corporate limits of Grand Rapids, correct? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're on Grand Rapids property.
But they're not on town property in the sense that the town doesn't own that property.
So who owns the property if it isn't
the airport?
If it isn't considered in Grand Rapids?
The airport commission owns that property. The airport commission owns all of the property which the airport occupies.
So doesn't on the other hangars, did they not have to come to Grand Rapids to get building permits?
Right, they're in the jurisdiction of the town. Correct. So whoever's jurisdiction the property is that somebody wants to improve, that's the ordinances that they follow.
Well, all right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the call.
Okay. It is. I can see where it can get kind of confusing because of the fact that we have multiple jurisdictions. It's a large property area, and it's how many different jurisdictions are there? Yeah,
and I'm not sure when the airport was founded why they didn't put it all in a single municipality. I mean, that would make things a lot cleaner.
Yeah, it would have made it a lot easier.
Everybody's zoning is slightly different, especially when you're thinking municipality to town in the case of the city or the village versus the town. I think those are unique. There's different codes. I think one of the big things with that separate or distinguishes the city from the town is that the city has a much better ISO rating when it comes to fire service because of just having a career department and the apparatus that we have and our response times. So versus a volunteer department, I think that's the big difference as well. So the hangars and the property, the improvements, the terminal and the hangar being located in the city's corporate limits or in the village, very well could improve the insurance rating as well as the cost to the Airport Commission for providing having insurance coverage at the facility.
And I think if you ask the average person who drives by there every day, they would consider that Wisconsin Rapids.
Yeah, many people assume that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's not. Okay, we got to take a break real quick. We'll be back with more here on the Morning Magazine. Welcome back to our final portion of the Morning Magazine, our monthly visit with Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink. Okay, let's talk about the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the latest on that?
So at the last council meeting, the council voted to pursue the project and continue to fundraise over the course of collecting bids as well as potentially constructing aspects of the facility. And so bids are due next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, and we anticipate, provided everything comes in at or under budget, there were a number of general contractors that were interested in the project, and so we're optimistic that the bids will come in appropriately. Now, steel prices with tariffs and all these other things and availability of labor, frankly, these contractors are really having a tough time finding a labor pool. So we're hopeful that bids will come in at or under budget, and then from there the council will award a bid, and construction will begin perhaps as soon as mid-May. If folks have been by Chestnut Street or 8th Street and seen the track is being removed at this time to prepare for what will be likely the pool site. The track is determined by the school district. It's city property, but the school district decided that they didn't have a use for that track. Plus, it was quite obsolete and maybe unsafe for those that were using the track out.
Okay, and that leads to a question, and it might not be a major issue, but it's kind of a functional one because the Rafter Stadium there and the Rafter season coming up, and they have those fireworks nights. They've used that left field area as a firing area for their fireworks shows. Are they going to be moving that this year? And then
it's likely would stay the same because most of the obviously the shows are at night and the construction activity the space wouldn't be occupied. And I think the other points on the pool project. So as far as the budget goes, we're pursuing the entire project. The entire project included some work that the city would be doing to remove properties and things. And then so the entire budget's about $12 million, and the city has received $3 million in gifts to the project. Actually, $3,100,000, and at this point, it looks like the city will be borrowing about $8.5 million. Now, we're going to continue to pursue financing, and we've got a number of donors that have yet to let us know what their pledge amount will be to the project.
Okay, let's get back to the phones, and you're on the Morning Magazine with Mayor Vruwink.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
I'm concerned about creating another railroad crossing on 48th Street for the aluminum factory. I mean, you could actually be trapped between two railroad crossings. I mean, couldn't the new track come in from the east side instead of the west side and eliminate the need for that crossing?
That's a good question. So the CN has not approved any, especially in the master plan that when the park was originally built in the early 2000s, there wasn't any provision by the CN at the time to connect the trail to the railroad track to the south from the east side. The amount of rail traffic that will be created from Metalco's investment is very minor. It's relatively incidental. And there's also a car mover, I guess they'll call it, for lack of a better word, that moves the cars to the main line. So you're not going to have unit trains backing up or any of that kind of thing. That's basically getting cars from the main spur down to the city spur and then across 48th Street.
Okay, I guess it was always my impression that you eliminate crossings whenever possible. So
that's true.
I guess I just like it looked into, I guess. Yeah,
it's true. And this, because this is not a CN railroad crossing, it's actually a city spur. It's viewed a little bit differently as far as the amount of crossings go, because this will be, as I said, incidental to CN's operations.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you for your call. Anything since he brought up Metelko and anything new on there?
Effectively, last night the city's review of the building project and all the construction activity is complete. They'll have to submit further plans and things before they get their permits. But the big controlling item is the DNR review and their air quality and other permits that they have to pull. So that's currently under DNR review, and when that's completed, a groundbreaking will be scheduled. So the DNR review could take 3 to 4 months. So depending on how that falls, we hope to have something yet this year, but we can't be so certain.
Okay. Yeah, and I know whenever you're dealing with factories, they're going to be extra careful nowadays.
Yeah, and there's also a major air permit that's been pulled by ND Paper, and so I'm not assuming that the same division's reviewing these, but it's likely that the same group would. So depending on how those processes go, in both regard, ours is obviously a smaller project than what ND Paper is proposing with the conversion of their paper operations to do the container board type activities.
Okay. Well, anything new on the Triangle project?
No update on the Triangle. We continue to work with the developer to acquire the property that is not owned by the city at this time, and until we can make inroads on the remaining property, we will not have anything to update.
Okay. Any thoughts about what it will take?
Well, I've got some hopes and I've got some reality, I think, but we'll see. I don't have any real strong feelings at this point. We're optimistic that property acquisition will occur. It's just a matter of when.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that, of course, the boy. I just had the head of the Boys and Girls Club here, and we were talking about their portion of the Boys and Girls YMCA project. From the city's standpoint, how is that proceeding?
It's looking quite nice. Basically, the footprint is now coming and it's sort of being established. So folks go over to kind of park near Subway, they can really see the footprint of where the YMCA will be located. That elevation and construction has gotten underway. The pool portion will follow, but the Boys and Girls Club, the exterior, the windows are in, and so it's looking nice. They've got a year left to go, really, until they finish construction and get open. So there's a lot of work yet to be done. At some point they'll be moving to the inside and building out that work. But it's looking good, and it'll be a great addition to the downtown area. I talk with my counterparts about the changing landscape within retail and the commonality of having regional malls like that sit vacant in their community is just not only a blight but an eyesore, but it really a drain on the confidence of the community. So we're very excited to have a reuse, really, without having a defunct mall sit there for too long.
Yeah, because there are cities that have that, or they got a mall that's barely alive with a few stores, but in essence, you walk into it and it's like, why are these stores even in here?
That's right. The unique repurposing of these malls is really cool to see. I was just reading, I get the Milwaukee or the Wisconsin Business Journal, and Milwaukee has a mall downtown. The city actually just gave them a $9 million grant. Yeah, it wasn't just a loan, it was a grant to repurpose the interior of the Grand Avenue shops down there, which it's an open air mall, couple of levels, but right in the heart of downtown. And communities are realizing if you don't have a strong heart and core of your downtown, of your city, the rest of the community really can't thrive, because it's kind of a dead weight or a boat anchor that keeps the rest of the community back.
So once this is up and running, and then you got the senior project nearby, how will that affect other development in there? I've had people call, well, what about that eyesore that is the former
Foundry. Yeah.
Foundry.
Actually, we had an item on our council agenda last night. I forgot to mention it. We're actually working with the owners of the property and pursuing a state grant that would help perform environmental remediation and review to make sure that, there's probably some cleanup that'll have to happen there. City's not buying the property at this point, but the developer or the owners have come to us, say, we really want to clean this up. And we're like, hallelujah, we want to clean it up just as bad. They haven't been operating out of there for a while now. So the property's being stripped and removed, and this grant will help them move fairly quickly in getting the site cleaned up and remediated. It's their intention. They made it clear at the committee meeting they'd like the city to have the property when they're done. So, but we're not going to pursue it or a purchase of the property now, or I don't think in the foreseeable future. It needs to get cleaned up, and we need to get a environmental bill of health before we engage with it. But we've had some developers, in light of the YMCA Boys and Girls Club redevelopment, that have looked at that for housing, and we believe it'll be developed at some point. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take to get cleanup to occur.
The area that the Mead-Witter Foundation controls downtown, people are wondering about that. I know you've been in contact with them, and they bought all those properties, and they said they had some kind of a vision, and everyone's wondering, okay, what's the vision?
Yeah, I think it stems, as I've been told, it stems from early Consolidated Papers' vision to remove blight in the downtown area in the early 90s, early mid-90s, and then obviously they've held it now, and their intent is to do something that will support a more successful downtown.
Okay.
I believe that the area that's currently sand, where the Book World and Church's drug buildings were in the previous cultural center, will probably be grassed in the interim. It won't be made into a park, but temporarily made into grass, so that way it doesn't look like a big sandbox. Right. And then ultimately, we've gotten commitments that we can mutually be working toward finding developers for that property. So I don't have a timeline on it because, for one, there's a question of whether or not the entire block needs to be made available to a developer, or portions of the block. Construction can happen quite uniquely around other things. So we're in the very exploratory phases right now of looking at that.
And when you talk about exploratory, what kind of uses are we looking at?
It would likely be similar to the Triangle Project.
Okay. So some type of housing and retail?
That's right. Yep, some first floor commercial retail. Yeah, but it probably wouldn't be more than first floor retail. I don't think there's, unless there's a tenant in mind that would be willing to take a second floor of commercial office space or something. But at this point, it would be upper floors retail. So probably 2 to 3 stories would be likely in that block.
Okay. Well, look. The bottom line is there's a lot of construction going on in this town, and a lot of the hotels are filled with construction workers. That in itself is a boost to the local economy, is it not?
That's right. And really for our room tax collection, we're by this time next month, we're going to be well into the opening of Sand Valley's golf season, as well as the golf options beyond Sand Valley. So it'll be another year of tourism activity, and our hotels in the area will be bustling with pilot activity and others.
Okay, we're going to take this caller, and this will be it. Ask the caller to be as quick as possible because we got less than 3 minutes to go on today's show. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, I watched the Common Council meeting last night, and I just caught part of it where there's a sushi place coming in, and I don't want to make an advertisement out of it, but I missed where that was.
Sure.
I'll listen offline.
Okay, thanks for the call. Another new business. We had 2 ribbon cuttings last week, one on A Street and one on Pepper and 12th. This is actually relation to China Palace, but it's a brother of Tony from China Palace, and they're going to be opening in the former chalet. So the county finally sold that property. We took almost a dozen people through there trying to get them to do various projects, and so we're excited the county sold it, and we approved a liquor license to a business called Hokkaido, and they emphasize sushi. I'm not exactly sure their full menu, but they're probably 60 days or so from opening that enterprise. So I'm a sushi eater. I drive to Point for sushi. I am hopeful that it'll be just as good. And
I know a bunch of people in town here that love sushi.
I see Rapids people all the time when I'm up in Point having dinner. Yeah.
Okay, but the important thing is we get it on the tax rolls.
That's right.
And with a business that's actually going to be paying taxes and get something going on.
It's a huge property, and so it obviously very visible on 8th Street. So it'll be great to have it occupied.
Okay. Well, as always, Your Honor, I appreciate the time. And again, folks, if you looking for some trees to buy, take advantage of the city's tree sale. And again, if you want to keep up with what's happening on the East Grand Avenue project, you have a link on the city website that will be updated on a regular basis, and people can just check on that on a regular.
Exactly, and jump on the city's Facebook page, download the city's smartphone app. Jump on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook and see every week or just about every day I'm posting something about what's happening around the city.
Okay, we appreciate your time, and we'll do it again next month. In the meantime, you and your family and everybody at City Hall have a happy Easter.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for listeners.
Wisconsin Rapids Mayor Zach Vruwink wrapping up his monthly report here on the Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com, as well as on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media.